every single time they have a penalty kick, they shoot the ball right at the goalie, like they're going to try and knock him over. It's very seldom do you knock a goalie over. Every single one of these debates we've been judged on a very narrow band of issues. Solvency. I wrote down, this is the issues I wrote down for the final debate. Why are sex rates increasing? Is the status quo effective? Is the plan effective? Do prisoners have rights? Is the plan really more bad than good? And then I wrote human rights again. That's a very narrow list. You know, HIPS, harms, inherency, blanks, solvency, advantages. I know you sort of do it, comparative advantage plan, but I didn't hear that many advantages, and I didn't hear proven that much. On this side, basically all of your attack was on two things. And one of them, I'm being kind of nice saying significance, since you never said the word significance. All the rest of it was based on solvency. And you did defend the status quo. But a lot broader debate would have been a lot more interesting from both sides. Also, the cross-exes, some of them were pretty bad. Some of them, I think you should have paid the other side to question you, because all your answers help them. How is your plan going to work? Do you have any evidence that, I mean, a lot of times I forgot who was doing the cross-exing because you were helping the other side so much. Keep track of what you're doing about the cross-examinations. The rebuttals then went over this very narrow list of issues, and we had, I think, all three judges, this same list of issues. Okay.
Thanks. It's okay.
You know, I think the affirmative, you started off already presenting something that made me feel like, you're really going to have to really work hard to make me think that you're going to win this debate for two reasons. One would be the more fundamental reason, as you said, look at the resolution. The resolution is about should, and therefore we're really going to talk about should we release this information, not about how to release the information. Unfortunately, policy debates really, a lot of it is about how to do it. Okay, not about really the should is really more like saying this is what should be done.
Oh, and if I can interrupt, if that's the case, then why did you tell us how you're doing it? It's self-contradictory.
But you kind of said we're just going
because they didn't attack the details.
Yeah.
It's a very end.
You just said, well, we're going to release it. How? You had nothing at all. You could have simply just said, anyone can just go to a website. We're going to create a website. I mean, that's at least something. But you didn't say anything. So actually, from a typical debate standpoint, because you didn't present a plan, you just automatically lose. Okay, so that I was hoping that somewhere along the line we'd like hear something about the plan. They kind of tried to attack solvency, but it's hard to attack solvency when there's no plan to attack about the solvency. They just did more in general terms. How does releasing the information going to help? They made a nice, good argument about there's so much information. Are people going to keep it memorized, et cetera, et cetera? I think you even said, you know, where's evidence that it's going to work? I think you could have also said, who's going to go look for it? You know, if it's not something that's sort of announced, how many of us are going to go and actually check this if there is a website or if there is some list somewhere? How many people are going to do it? And again, the problem is burden of proof is on you for the solvency. You can't just say, oh, we think it's going to work. Oh, they have a bunch of questions, but we don't need to answer them because it's going to work. You can't do that because the burden of proof is on you guys for solvency. So for me, I think inherency and solvency are the two issues that why I gave it to the negative, because I think they raised enough good questions about will you really be able to solve it? Because you really lacked a plan. Even if you had a generic plan about just releasing information on a website or whatever, what evidence is real information? They provided some counter evidence to say that, you know, in the U.S., well, actually counter evidence by the lack of evidence. They said, well, Britain and the U.S., they've been doing it, but where's the research to support that it's helping? It seems like, you know, we don't see any. The second thing I think I'd like to focus on is a little more on style of debate. For me, maybe not everyone believes this. I think debate should be very calm, cool, collected. It's really about the issue. It's a very intellectual thing. Your style, when you did your first presentation, I felt like, wow, this is a future, Hillary Clinton. She looks like she's going to be going for a campaign. I saw more of a campaigner, politician style than more of a lawyer style. Again, that's my preference. I don't know if you guys have the same preference.
I didn't have a problem with that. But there were two key evidence points. They said there's more reporting, therefore that explains the supposed increase. And they went back and forth. Your response should have been, show us the evidence that is due to more reporting. You never said that. On their side, they just said it makes logical sense. You could have forced them to prove that, because then it proves the status quo is not working. That was the one key evidence point. The other one is solvency. And they kept saying, where's evidence your plan's going to work? Guys, you've had 2 months to find evidence. You have what we call for the affirmative, research advantage. No matter how many bad sites they should have had, you should have had 10 more. Just because you know what you're debating, they don't know what you're debating. You don't have any evidence that Megan's law is working.
And then just the other thing too is I think, again, it seems like it wasn't until a second affirmative speech that you guys mentioned the harm. You talk about a raid that causes pain and economic harm, et cetera, it can't work, et cetera. Again, if you're going to do that, then I think we need some significance of that. Like how much, what's the estimate about the number of dollars that are lost to the economy because of raid and people not being able to go to work? So I just felt like there were some burden of proof, things that you needed to do that you didn't even kind of try to do. And so I think that's, in terms of style, style generally isn't going to cause you to lose or win a debate. Like I said, it's just more of a personal thing. It's kind of too bad the second affirmative isn't here. I think he was a style that I didn't like, and that's the kind of combative, almost like I was thinking, oh, are they going to fight? He should have been very polite, even though you disagree, etc. The style should have been much more calm and polite. Maybe you can tell him that. Debate is not a verbal battle in the sense of an argument. It's debate. But I think I agree with you.
I would disagree on that, because when you have a lawyer cross-examining his client, you get OJ on the stand. They didn't put OJ on the stand because they didn't want him to be grilled for 2 hours. And I think that's part of policy debate only because of the
you can be grilled, but you're grilled in a very calm, collected way. It's not a impassioned or emotional grilling. It's a very just very pointed statements, question, evidence. In other words, you didn't see like Cochran say, "Come on, OJ, really? You can spit this if this blood fits you? Come on, let me see it." It wasn't like that. She was like, "Well, if this is true, then you should be able to put this on. Let's see." So anyway, let me say that. Are there any other more details here? Yeah, I think you guys dealt well with the human rights issue to say that, well, that's when they're in prison is when we've taken their human rights away. But we're trying to get them back into society, and I think we need to still consider their human rights when they're putting them back into society. I think the issue of is the status quo getting better in the sense of is there a decrease or not? You had some evidence that was decreasing. They had some evidence that said there were more cases, but you can't have both. You can't have more cases, but less cases. So which one is it? You kind of gave up and you said, well, if it's more cases, it's because of education. So you were kind of giving up on that it was actually decreasing. I would have just said, where's that evidence? Look at the evidence and try to see if you can find out whether the evidence is correct or not. Or is it only more cases in a certain part of Taiwan? Okay, or whatever. The other thing too is I think people have asked this, and that is about what can you do in the rebuttals and about can you present new evidence or whatever. And we've said in other groups that you can't present new arguments. You can present other evidence that you didn't present before, but it should be related to some position, some statement that was made in a constructive. both sides, I think, kind of put in new arguments. For example, the first negative rebuttal, you said the affirmative failed to have a plan to prevent the leak of information. You never mentioned that this was a disadvantage of their plan, that if they're planning to provide information, what if it suddenly gets to the wrong people or something?
Yeah, sorry. And I think that is actually a logical question, because
Yeah.
if you already publicize the personal information, what do you mean by leak out?
Yeah, you could have defined that. I assumed, maybe I was helping you, I assumed that since they restricted it to only citizens could have access to the information, that you were somehow non-citizens were getting access to the information. Again, what's the harm of non-citizen? I mean, you don't want to prevent rape of foreign visitors, you know. So anyway, you could have gone further in that, but I think that in itself is just something you totally didn't even say about security of information, and it's not appropriate to bring that up in the rebuttal. Likewise, for the affirmative, you brought and said, it's a disincentive for, my scribbles, for the first, you said, the reason why we want to have this present information is it's a disincentive to committing your first sexual offense. So you didn't make that as an argument for your solvency to say that, why is our plan going to work? If people know their information after they commit the first offense, it's going to be made public, then maybe they'll think twice, they won't do it. So that's how it's going to solve the problem. You didn't make that argument in the first part, so I think it would be inappropriate to make it here. Well, or is it okay because they're responding to their question about solvency? Maybe it's okay.
Actually, I missed that argument, but I had just them down for two-way arguments. I was surprised in the negative that during the time for the rebuttal, you didn't talk to each other during the 5-minute break. You know you're allowed to do that, right? Oh, yeah, okay. So I was amazed how quiet and calm you were.
They're telepathic, they just think. So again, I think for us, it seems like we wanted to judge this based upon the actual debating, not so much your English language skills. I would say your group, no problem. You have very good English language skills. I think there are some places where I had to really listen harder to try to figure out, okay, what is it you're saying? I think in some of the responses during the cross-examinations, it was harder for you. But I think it was okay. You know, I understood enough to be able to figure out what your arguments, how you're responding. But maybe that's one area I would say that for you guys, if you want to continue an English debate, an area you can improve is to try to really improve your ability to express yourself. Because I feel like there are good ideas behind that. It's just sometimes it's harder to get, and it maybe slows you down too. You're not able to say as much as you want to because it takes you more time.
Is that about it? Yeah, I want to disclose something.
So, should we announce the results?
I think we should. We're giving it to the negative 2 to 1. And then the best speaker is who?
The second negative.